Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Palm Springs Desert Cathedral City recap video thing. I don't really know what to call this trip. Baseball tournament in Palm Springs. Okay. A few things to talk about. Number one, we'll talk about the hotel. We'll also talk about the city street layout of the Palm Springs Cathedral City Palm Desert area, and we'll talk about driving lastly because I did 10 hours of driving this weekend. Which is kind of insane. So theoretically, that means I spent a ninth of my time driving, which actually sounds completely unrealistic. I don't know how that makes sense, but it does because there's 96 hours in the weekend and I spent 10 hours driving. So theoretically, I guess I spent ninth of my weekend, which I still don't understand because I drove for 4 hours today. That's a 6, and if it was for 3 hours, it would be an 8, so that's really close to a 9th. So I don't understand how I did, well, whatever. The math somehow kills itself. So anyways, yeah, thanks, Sunday or Thursday morning, I had 27 hours of driving, and tonight I have 37, so that's how we got. Anyways, so ton of driving. So first off, let's get some stuff out of the way. For those of you who live in the area, which is extremely doubtful, or know the area, which is, again, extremely doubtful, we were staying at the Doubletree by Hilton on the corner of Vistachino and Landau, or I don't know how you pronounce it. We played games today and yesterday at Big League Dreams, this baseball center off of Date Palm Drive near the corner of Dave Kelly, and then Friday night we played our 2 games at the Palm Desert Civic Center somewhere off Monterey. So here's how it all went down. So I guess first we'll talk about city street layout because it's a grid, and it's very, very weird because all of LA is a grid, right? I've been alive 15 years, right? In my 15 years, I've gone to a few places, Generally speaking, I tend to go places to do things. So I've been to a ton of places, and I go places all the time. I drive all the time. Well, this isn't having to do with me being in the driver's seat as much as just, I go places. So, I go places. I'm on Google Maps all the time giving my mom directions or figuring out where I'm going first or just looking at the map for the hell of it. And, my area, pretty close by, is very, familiar to me and everything. So when I look at the grid on a map, all the streets I see and all the layouts I see, they all align to real-world places for me. Everything translates to the real world. So generally speaking, when I look at a map, I see this, I say, oh, I know this is this meant. So, I see the 2 cross streets, I go, it's not a conscious thing, it's just subconscious. I know how far it is from one point to the next. And going out to the desert was really weird because they have a grid, right? And all grids are the same shape, it's a huge grid, right? And I'm used to looking at the grid and knowing exactly how far it is from street to street because generally speaking, it's about the same length between all streets around here in the basin. But no, when you go out there, it's still a perfect grid, right? So it looks exactly like the map at home, except the grid is 12 and a half times bigger, or maybe 1.5 or 2. There's an immensely greater distance between everything in that grid. Here, the only time you're going to get a traffic light on the road is if you have 2 major streets intersecting. You have the really wide right street and the other wide white street. Oh, that's hard to say. 2 really wide white streets connecting or passing each other, intersecting. That's oh yeah, you're going to have a traffic light there. And, any other street, if you have a side street coming up to the boulevard, you're going to be lucky if the island, it's screw you, we're not even going to break the island for you. You're going to have to go to the next light and make a U-turn. You maybe you'll have a stop sign and an island break, but you'll never get a traffic light, right? But out there, it's ridiculous. Everything is so far apart, and there's a light on it, I'm so used to seeing every single major cross street has a traffic light, right? So I'm going 1, 2, 3 traffic lights down. But no, I get out there, I'm passing traffic light here. I'm what the hell? What are all these traffic lights going to? And you look down, and there's these streets, but then you look on the map, and they're side streets. I'm why do you get a traffic light, boy? And you go through all these so the traffic lights are actually, for the most part. Some points there's exception, because it is a desert, so there are some blocks of the grid where there's just literally a ton of empty field space, and then there's less stuff. But generally speaking, there's as many traffic lights as you would find in the city, but they're not major roads. So, like, the moral of the story is, I look at the map, right? I see the grid pattern I'm so used to, so I'm like, I'm going to go from this road to this road. Like, we were going to go to a McDonald's on Vistacino. I'm like, okay, it's 2 cross streets down, right? Because the next cross street's this, and the next cross street's that. But no, we drive, and we drive, and we drive, and we drive, and it's like 7-10 minutes to get all the way down there, and we're on Vistacino going like 45-50 miles an hour. And I'm like, holy smokes, this is really, really far away. And like, especially in Date Palm, there's just so many traffic lights. Like, Dave Kelly had a traffic light. Like, I look at it on the map, I'm like, oh, I'm hoping the island breaks are going to get a left turn lane, but there's a chance I'll have to use the left turn lane at the next major cross street, which was, I don't even remember what it was anymore. I'll have to use the next cross street light and turn around and come back, right? That's what I was thinking. But no, I get there's a traffic light, and it says Dave Kelly on it, and there's this really long left turn lane. I'm like, holy smokes, wow. It was just, that was a weird experience. That was weird to figure out for me. Just everything there was so spread out, and it's so against what I'm used to when I look at a grid, just knowing exactly how far it is. To see it and, say like, oh, this is a lot, 2 blocks, that's really long. You're going to go see like 17 and a half traffic lights in between there. So, that was weird. I haven't been to Palm out there for a really long, out in the desert for quite a while, so I'm not used to the street layout. And after figuring out what the hell's going on, I really like going to new places or just looking at new places on maps and figuring out what their street plan is. And after being there for a while, I really, really like what they're doing. There's something about it that feels really, there's not too many rule breakers. I hate rule breakers and I love rule followers. Out here in LA, we have way too many rule breakers. It pisses me off. There's stupid streets like La Cienega, and that was the first one that came to mind, but there's just tons of streets everywhere going wherever they want to go, and there's stupid hills everywhere. Like, my life was so easy looking at a map until I realized that the LA Basin wasn't like a perfect square or perfect circle, like with nice straight or slightly curved edges. Like, no, there's mountains coming in and out, and there's city going around mountains, and I'm like, no, my perfect world is ruined. So, tons of rule breakers out here, but in the inland, in the desert, there's actually not too many rule breakers, which is I really like that. So, on the north side, you have the 10, and the 10 generally goes diagonal. And then, actually, the 10 goes diagonal, like, in a perfectly straight line for a really long time. And then you have a grid, and the grid is aligned north-south, so, like, we're doing north-south right now, so you have grid line. Actually, you're probably watching it the other way, so the 10 goes this way, right? Because you're watching it, it's like, yeah. So you have this, and then you have north-south streets, and then east-west streets, which makes a ton of sense to me. But not only that, you have the 10 up here. You also have the 111, like, down here coming up. And, it's like, but I'm okay with it. Sometimes it hops onto other streets, kind of like the 101 does in San Francisco. It hops onto other streets and goes straight. But for a lot of it's going kind of diagonal, kind of parallelish to the 10, and then it goes up and straight, and then eventually it comes out and meets the 10. But in between 111 and 10, all the way through here, it's a perfect grid, and I love it so much. You have your grid of main streets, and most of them, there's like Londa died at Ramon. I was like, stupid idiot, why the hell can't you keep going? And Vistacino died at Date Palm. But for the most part, though, a lot of the streets, and it's just, I really like that, where you have a ton of boulevards going perfect grid north-south in between the 10 and the 111, like, easy to understand, easy to grasp, and they're not like numbered streets, although that's okay, and actually intelligent. They're named streets, which I think is cooler. So like there's streets like Gerald Ford Boulevard, Frank Sinatra, Vistacino, Date Palm. Date Palm's a weird name, but I like it. Ramon Road, Dave Kelly, I don't know who that is, but just a ton of, named streets out. So I actually really liked it out there. Another thing that stood out to me as what a great design right there. Is there was some road, I don't even know what it's called, but it was an east-west road, but then outside it hits 111, right, squiggling, it hits 111, squiggling up here, but then in the mountains, because the 111 is surrounded by mountains, that's why the city doesn't go past 111, in the mountains there's a tramway, right, so you have this road hits 111, changes names into tramway, and then it's just out in the desert alone, squiggling to the mountain, and then you get on the tram, and just, I don't know why I like that, but I so much happier with that as opposed to sometimes they put it where it's the shortest distance, right, and that's not aligned to a cross street, so you just have the intersection of tramway away from another boulevard. I'm like, no, but no, it was a line. Tramway comes in at some other street and then turns into that. I was like, yes, that's good. I don't know why that's really satisfying to me. Anyways, topic number 1 is done. Should I cut? Yeah, we're gonna come back tomorrow. Hope you all enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed the video, please do like the video. Please do hit the second share and I'll see you next time, guys. Bye bye.